Hello once again. I was asked recently why I do these monologues. Well, it's basically to inform those of you who think things are normal and governments are taking care of you. Well, let me tell you this, things are far from normal and governments are certainly not there for you. We are given the impression by governments that we are the best people in the world and we are the happiest people in the world. And this is purely said to control you and to entice you to go along with anything they want you to do. All major governments use psychological wizardry to encourage you to comply, and some governments openly admit it. And in England, we have SAGE, S-A-G-E, which is the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies. Look it up. It may surprise you to learn that they had at least 4 clinical psychologists on the team during COVID. Now, why would that be? I wonder. And I'll tell you, it's to manipulate people, to get you to do their bidding. Simple as that. With that and the press. And every product we buy today, there is a warning. Be aware of drink and drink responsibly. Be aware, cut down on sugar. Be aware and eat less fat. Be aware, don't smoke. And in reality, what we should be very aware of are our politicians. And they are definitely the biggest danger to all of us. And they're out to kill you in more ways than what you imagine. In all of their campaigns, you are the carbon they want to reduce. And it's openly admitted by the World Economic Forum, and which is just another global group who wants control over you and everyone. It is said that we make our own heaven and hell, and that is generally true. And the world is in a really bad mess, and unless you're a hermit, you must see it. Cruelty is rampant. Our leaders don't lead, but want us completely controlled. And most politicians are only there for themselves. Consequently, people are only interested in themselves. Selfishness is the modern mantra of a me generation and past generations, and it makes for a very unsettling society for ordinary people to live in. And it's a vicious circle, from the very top to the very bottom, and designed to be so. And the books 1984 and A Brave New World have never been so real. And they seem to have become the handbook for modern totalitarianism. Yeah. Now, the 2 major wars going on right now are condemned by the majority of people over the world, and yet they still carry on, regardless of loss of life, and be that of human or animal. Israel and its people were once victims of unbelievable atrocity, and now it seems they have become the perpetrators of the same thing. And it appears to me that human frailty is to blame, and all humans are as bad as one another. And no matter who you are, we justify what we do to each other by blaming others for doing the same as what we're doing. Isn't that hugely hypocritical? Yes, of course it is, because hypocrisy is firmly embedded in human nature. Excuse me. We preach one thing but practice the opposite. Astounding. And the problem is that many people who lead others are at the very least sociopaths and at their very worst psychopaths. Both of those groups of people have no conscience at all. And many politicians are there because they failed at most other things in life. And governments are mostly made up of ambitious misfits looking to control others and manipulate people. And sometimes because they are grossly unhappy and want you to pass their misery on. The question is, what do we do to change people's minds? Human suffering is visible everywhere, and we get numbed by the constant showing of it on TV, internet, and newspapers. However, human beings are not alone on this planet. We share this planet with animals who are conveniently forgotten about. Ukraine and Gaza have a massive population of animals that have been totally abandoned by the destruction of the infrastructure. And they are all slowly starving to death because humans take preference and we can't even look after our own, let alone feed the animals. And perhaps if more people knew about it, this might help stop the carnage and the madness. And animals are somehow more innocent than humans. And crucially deserve much better than what they get. And there are numerous posts on Telegram about this, photographs, but I certainly do not recommend going there because it's on a scale never ever seen before and it will break your heart, I promise you. Don't go there. And next time you see an animal, look it in the eye and say, you don't care. Because that is what is happening to them right now by all of us turning a blind eye to the atrocities, whether that is by ignorance or by apathy. It goes on anyway. Let me take you back for a little bit to the 1980s. On the morning of the 20th of July 1982, the Queen's Lifeguards were exercising their horses in Hyde Park. 15 mounted soldiers of the Household Cavalry were on their way back to Buckingham Palace. When a remote control car bomb was detonated by the IRA, blasting them with nails and other vicious shrapnel. This one incident shocked the whole world. It was national news everywhere. 4 men and 7 horses were killed, and many more were injured. And this one incident changed everything and was the beginning of the end for the IRA. And we eventually become desensitized towards the killing of humans, but when animals are killed in the process, the outrage is deep. And this isn't just England, it's universal. No one likes to see animal cruelty. And just to mention it, a few of those horses had devastating injuries, but thanks to dedicated people, they survived, if only to go into early retirement. And the message that came from that was strong, and it went out. You may kill our people, but if you dare to kill our animals, you will get the notoriety you deserve. And they eventually did. And the IRA that day went one step too far in Hyde Park. And they lost a lot of support. But let me just add quickly that the Troubles in Ireland were the consequence of British imperialism and the atrocious treatment of the Irish people, much of which was instigated by none other than Winston Churchill when he formed the Black and Tans to apparently destroy the IRA. And I encourage you to read the history of that. The Black and Tans were just a bunch of mercenaries, many of them petty criminals. They were paid £1 a day with free lodgings. And that, in £1 a day in 1922 was a lot of money. But in the end, man being man did Churchill's bidding for the notorious pieces of silver. Once again, I say the history is there to be read by anyone who chooses to look. Unfortunately, animals don't get to read history, but they most certainly are part of it and pay the ultimate price. A price they most certainly do not deserve. So, thanks for listening to someone who just reads history. A history that many people do not want you to know, but it's all there for the reading. And the more I read about humans, the more I love animals. They are such agreeable friends. They ask no questions and they never offer any criticism. And until we have loved an animal, a part of our soul remains unawakened and empty. We are often told that some animals are ruthless killers. No, they're not. They hunt to survive. It's nature. On the other hand, humans are the ruthless killers on this planet and kill for gain and for power. And then they justify it by fighting for king and country. And that is just another trick made up by our rulers to make you feel guilty. And talking of which, let me just finish with this. Just look at the 7 cardinal sins of Christian principle. And they were written for a very, very good reason. And you'll find most of us, we are all guilty of some of them, some more than others. And eventually, we all suffer the deserved consequences of what we do. Pride is at the top of the list. Wrath, greed, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. And then take a look at 2 of them together, pride and wrath. Now I just wonder who would use them as their mantra. It doesn't take a lot of figuring out, and it's all part of deliberate societal breakdown of the family. That's the idea. To crush the family. We don't want a family. And don't be fooled by popular groups pretending to be something else. Gay pride and happy wrath are just 2. Whatever adults people choose to do in private, it's entirely up to them. Absolutely. It's their choice. But don't force it on people who choose not to. Especially children in schools. And if this whole thing offends anyone, then I suggest you go forth and multiply. And I recommend you looking up that little phrase of what it actually means. Thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye.